This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. My name is Kevin Pruitt. It's always an honor to host this podcast, and I always look forward to the different guests that we have on. And our guest today has worked at the intersection of marketing and technology for nearly 2 decades. Past clients include the U.S. Navy, Fortune 100 companies, YC startups, presidential candidates, federal agencies, rock bands, and foreign governments. Today, he's the co-founder of Knowatoa, a service that tracks brand visibility, rankings, and sentiment within AI search services like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google Gemini. Please join me in welcoming a very close neighbor to me right now, Mike Buckbee, to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. Mike, thanks again for joining us.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Kevin. This is really cool.
We're sitting in probably close proximity as I've ever had a guest on the podcast. We probably could have done this in person at Starbucks somewhere, but we're probably sitting about 90 miles apart right now on the East Coast. He's a lot closer to the water and probably happier because of that. But
until the next hurricane, yeah.
The next hurricane, exactly right. So, hey, these intros are always too short and a lot, very business focused. So, round it out a little bit. Give our audience a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Who is Mike Buckbee?
Sure. Well, in the intro you mentioned, I worked for the Navy, and that's sort of how I ended up in Virginia Beach. Is that I was working for a software company in Ohio that was doing handheld medical records, and it was used by special forces because those folks, they have a tremendous amount of training, and so if they sprain an ankle, they can't do their missions, they can't do their stuff. And the way they talk about it is it's the same as like having a jet, a massive fighter jet that's $1 billion or something that it has a messed up wing. Well, it can't go out on missions. They have that much training in these people, so they have to get them back. So they were really innovative in this, rehab software, doing all this tracking and metrics. And so I'd originally moved down here to help support that. And just like the area, met my wife, the first week I was down here, my eventual wife. We didn't get married after a week, but it's been a real good experience. So I've been here for quite a while now. So,
well, it is an interesting place. It's not really the East Coast Silicon Valley alternative, is it? I mean, Virginia Beach is a kind of a different. It's more of a tourist attraction than it is a startup hub, but. Tell us about the environment there.
It's definitely not a startup hub. It is very heavily tourist. We may or may not have the sounds of freedom, aka jets, directly over my house during this, but we'll see. But those are the big industries. And an interesting thing especially for folks who have done a lot of marketing or a lot of technology stuff, software development, trying to work with people in these areas is often a challenge, even to network with them, because a lot of times people can't really say what they work on. They can't even sometimes say who they work for. Yeah. And it's tough to be like, oh, we do a similar thing. You get a lot of people that are like, oh, I work for a group. Oh yeah, I do a thing, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to press this. This is just going to embarrass both of us. So yeah, it's, so, part of the reason I like doing these podcasts is to talk to people, who share similar interests, but aren't my neighbor across the street. So,
yes, no doubt. And I mean, it's a global village, as Friedman said. So, you can talk to people all over the globe. So I oftentimes when I'm interviewing people and we kind of start talking about, the product or service or company that they're building, and it so often was like a personal itch that they had internally in there. It is just an itch they were scratching, and it just kind of grew into this bigger thing, kind of had this snowball effect. Talk about the company that you are running right now, and what's the origin story there?
Sure. So I was not in an agency. I was director of marketing at a big cybersecurity company, public cybersecurity company for almost 10 years, and joined them pre-IPO, helped them grow, was over the SEO group, was over, a bunch of stuff. And at some point, I'm also a software developer. I left to start my own cybersecurity company. And that did okay. But it was right at the rise of the AI stuff and right at the rise of ChatGPT. And I had formed a virtual network, kind of like we're talking about, with like other sort of SaaS founders, other people that were doing stuff. And it's kind of a joke. We put our names into ChatGPT, like, oh, here's what it says about my company. Here's what it says about this. And it was early days and a lot of it was wrong. But especially, I think marketers may be unaware of just how much of a hold AI has taken over on the software development side. Like, it is a massive, massive change. And along with that has been, in the software development side, a massive decrease in the number of Google searches that you would do. Because normally software development for a long time was like, I'm going to write some stuff. Oops, I got an error code. Let me look up how to do this. Do it a little bit. Oops, what's the right way to do this? And AI has just obliterated all of those types of queries. So so those sort of came together, and I got up and I wrote a little script, like a script that just ran on my Mac that hit OpenAI, the ChatGPT API, and got out results, and then threw it into a CSV file. Then I put it in Google Sheets for my own company. A few other people said they liked it, so I made a couple for them. And that was sort of it. And then a few of these SaaS companies that had post-purchase surveys where they were like, hey, how'd you hear about us? How'd you come in? They were like, hey, Mike, we keep getting people saying they hear about us from ChatGPT. Can we get an update on that spreadsheet? And like, all right, yeah, you can. And so that's really the start of it was, real need, real people. And sort of has grown from there, from literally a one file script that made a CSV to a Google Sheet, and to now, like, we process millions of questions. And it's an actual application that does things and has rankings and all sorts of stuff to show like where a brand lives in AI search. So
now, is there still an overlap between the security side of things? I mean, are you doing these searches? Hey, I'm going to type my name in, type my company's name in, or whatever. Is there still a security element to the searches that you can do that say, hey, here, this is identifying exposure we have in these areas, or that type of thing?
I think there's a lot of, this is sort of, you pick up skills at every job you've been through and every different thing. And so there's a lot of like reverse engineering is a big thing in the security community, and jailbreaking. And there's a lot of that that we're trying to do to figure out the internals of all of these systems. I think that's probably the most, applicable sort of thing. But certainly security is not going away in any sense. But the AI, so we pivoted and changed and said, like, this seems like a much bigger opportunity. This seems like a much more exciting opportunity in a lot of ways. So yeah, we jumped on it. So
to the untrained eye here, it appears to be it just is a constant battle to stay, to keep from being obsolete or irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And I mean, are you literally just waking up every day thinking, okay, what changes do we have to make to keep up with the rapid advances in these new search opportunities like, Gemini or ChatGPT? Or
so yes and no. So here's something we do. And this comes from the perspective of, being an in-house person at a SaaS doing marketing sort of stuff. I think so much of this goes back to user intent, which is that, and you talk about the search intent. And I've always thought the best marketers are the ones that are most empathetic, that can get in, like, the prospects has this problem. We're trying to help them out. If we can help them out, we look like a hero. Maybe they want to use our service, whatever. I've always thought that's a very ethical way of marketing, and it's something we're trying to live as well with our stuff. So something we have is we pull out the existing search intents that, for a site. So, used to have a site, cybersecurity, did web application firewalls, did all this stuff. you know, there's, things people are trying to stop with those. There's searches, there's still needs they have. And we try to look at how those needs are now being serviced by the AI searches versus, traditional search. And I think there's still a tremendous value in having people in all of this, to having marketers do this stuff. And in general, I think there is the advent of AI is going to make a lot more work for marketers than it is less. And so I'm very positive on it as a profession. So
It's interesting, you and I talked just briefly before we hit the big red record button here, and one thing that I said I really wanted to touch on and kind of get your thoughts and your expertise on is that, how is it different? How
sure.
has search changed, moving from the traditional engines, Google and hey, I go back to Alta Vista and AOL. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's I can
Ask Jeeves.
go
Yeah,
way
we can
back.
talk
Yeah.
about all these,
So how has this quantum shift in the last few years really changed the game as far as search is concerned? And I mean, from both perspectives, both from the person that's searching and the one that is trying to be found, and in the engine
yeah,
itself. So
I think from the user side, I think what we're seeing is that search is becoming less and less of a destination and more of a feature. And what I mean by that is that it's just going to be something baked in to all of our applications in the same sort of way that you think about something like Grammarly or spell check. These things are just built in to applications. You don't copy your letter you're writing to someone, your email. You don't copy it out into another application and say spell check this. It's just built in. And we're going to have search just built into all of our tools in the exact same way. And you see like inklings of this right now. Certainly, I mentioned on the development side where, if you need to write a JavaScript loop or you're having problems with the one in your thing, you don't go, and we all have the skill of like this abstraction of like, okay, I'm trying to do a thing. I abstract it into a query, I write it, and then I synthesize the top 3 or 4 sites into an answer. Then I go do a task. Then I just do that loop over and over again. And the true AI search just kills all of that because you take that chunk of code and you throw it in ChatGPT and you say, hey, fix this, or what's wrong with this, and that layer of abstraction that we've all done just collapses. And, even better is that the new software development tools literally like you highlight a paragraph, a little chunk of code, and you say, Command K, do this thing to it. And that's how everything is going to be. And if you go into tools like Notion has built-in AI stuff, which is really cool because you can be like, I'm going on a vacation to Virginia Beach. I need a list of what to bring. And you type / make a list of all the stuff to bring. And it makes a to-do list of like, here's all the stuff. And like, and it's interesting. So I think that's from the user side. From the side of the publisher, or maybe like a SaaS company, because that's B2B SaaS is sort of where my brain defaults to. The SEO game was really about traffic. Was, hey, I'm going to write, this article that is probably low intent, but it gets a lot of people to my site. I get some awareness from that, gets them into my marketing funnel. Maybe I get them on a newsletter. Maybe I can get them to sign up for a webinar. And now that search journey for most users is being sucked up 90% into the AI chat. And it's just that last little bit that becomes, a navigational search in Google. So, you start off with, hey, my site's being attacked. I'm not sure what to do. How do I figure out like where this traffic's coming from? And it's like, oh, well, here's 3 or 4 different things you can do. There's endpoint protection, there's web application firewall. And so the search journey now is this, thing that's below the surface that we don't have any, external views into. It's just something we sort of have to take for granted. And we need to be smart about this because we're still trying to run businesses. So we need to not focus on creating that top of funnel content, but really move down and create that mid and bottom of funnel content. And that's the biggest shift I see in terms of like content strategy.
So if you're moving down the funnel, are you assuming that you're going to be found at the top of the funnel because of the way the chat GPT is designed? Or, I mean, you don't get to the middle of the funnel without entering the funnel. So have you addressed that?
Someone else said this. I'm not sure who, but they said it's weird. Like in the future, we're going to think it's odd that we had these like mini Wikipedia sites on all of our individual websites that had like this description of stuff that's like kind of related, but not really related to our thing. Like, again, like cybersecurity. The most popular post I've maybe ever written was about proxy servers. Now, our company didn't really do anything with proxy servers. It kind of was a proxy server. A lot of the people that were getting to it were actually like students trying to get a proxy server to get around their schools, like web filters. Like, this is not great traffic. Tremendous amounts of traffic, not great traffic. But still, it was a very technical article. It was, anyone who read it in truth and like scrolled to the bottom and like consumed it, they learned something, they got something out of it. But that is not a great experience, like search experience, compared to what you can get in ChatGPT, where it's much more helpful, it's much more conversational. And so that type of informational strategy and writing is what I consider to be the top of the funnel. And then the mid funnel is a lot more the consideration. Here's the buying guide, because we're trying to shape, how to think about this stuff. Like, hey, it's not enough to detect, cybersecurity threats. You then need to actually stop them. Like, and so we want to make sure anyone who starts into this has both of those ideas in mind. And then the bottom of the funnel is very much the, hey, is this company overpriced? Are they good value for their money? Do they actually do what they say?
I love the way that you described, search being a feature, not a destination, and it kind of led me to think about it. And you actually used the word just a second ago. It's almost like it has moved from like a transactional, uh, interchange to a conversational one. When you're really trying to kind of refine. I mean, just using that and I love the typing something in that does a quick query, and then all of a sudden goes, oh, did you mean this? Or did, here's the answer, but if you do this or if you refine this, then yes, it may be a better answer. So it really is like, hey, I'm calling you up on the phone and saying, oh, by the way, can you tell me, everything about this thing, versus, have to weed through the weeds.
Something that from the user perspective that ChatGPT and these other services get is an automatic sort of scraping off of all the vendor fluff as well, which is
Yep.
that I'm writing in a very particular way for this company. There's things that aren't even like negative, but just like I can't state publicly about this. I can't say exactly, what, we can sort of help you for this, but you're much better off with a better solution, or, the problem you have, we can absolutely help with. We don't really advertise it that way, but, and like maybe it's overkill for a lot of people, but not for you because you have such a high transaction, whatever it is. It's hard to convey all that nuance, but so much of that, gets stripped away when you get the answers from ChatGPT or something else. And so I think people intuitively trust it more. And that sort of third person remove that you write in as a brand voice is something I just think people are going to trust less and less going forward. So
This question has never come up on a previous interview, so yeah, you're the guinea pig here. So we're going to do a little role play. So you are ChatGPT, and so I'm a marketing agency owner, and I am getting online, and I'm trying to find out how Knowatoa can help me. And by the
okay.
way, it sounds like my favorite volcano in Hawaii, I think, is the
Yeah.
when I say that. So and I type in, okay, what problems, what features, what's the USP here that is really going to be helpful, moving forward, and do it in terms of, anyone from 5 to 500 could understand the details of how this new little interface is going to help. me accomplish the goals we need to accomplish. So it's almost like we're jumping on the elevator. We got a minute and a half to go through and
Yeah.
give you the sales pitch here, but I'm really more concerned about features and functionality and that type of thing. What, directly integrated kind of in the marketing space.
Sure. So, I think a good baseline is traditional search services. A lot of marketing agencies, we have traditional search. Now, what we're trying to do is move forward to AI search. I'm trying to answer this as ChatGPT, So a real issue in this is that search is fracturing because we're talking about it becoming features, but also it's becoming a lot more specialized. There's a bunch more of these different services. They're in a lot more different places. It's just a lot more to keep track of on behalf of your clients. So it's nice to have that well organized. So you can set up a question in one thing, and instead of just worrying about Google and maybe Bing, you just have that same question broken out over 10 different services or however many. So it's good to track those, see where your company you're trying to help with shows up. We just have citations, in place to see what sites are influencing that. Another thing I think we're doing, no one else is that there's no Google Search Console equivalent for any of these different services. So it's really hard to tell, am I being indexed? Can they get to me? And beyond just indexing, we're seeing a lot now of myself as ChatGPT, but also other services, do essentially a real-time check of your website for like updated pricing or updated features. You need to make sure all of those services can reach your site, because if they can't, they just skip you and you're not included in the results. So beyond indexing this like live real-time interaction, we check if I think it's now 25 different bots from like 14 different services can reach you. So all that is, a good start to this. And then I think beyond that, we're moving into more action-oriented things to say like, hey, you're trying to rank for this question. Beyond just like, here's what it is today, you can look a little bit at the history of this to see, hey, here, ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, nobody actually uses it anymore, but it was there. And if you had looked for like, hey, what's the best email service? It would tell you, here's a list of 10 companies. But if you check in today in like 4.0 or 4.0 rather, it would actually say like, here is who this is best for. Here are the key features of it. And maybe those align to where you're going. Maybe that's historical, but you should sort that out. And, those are all things you won't have a good handle on without that. And knowing those features, we see the people with the most success now reflect that content back. So it comes up and says key features. I know I got to get on the ball when I write my next, social post, when I write my next blog post. I'm gonna say, hey, the key features of this are boom, boom, boom. We are best for boom, boom, boom. And that helps us influence those, and that helps us get more customers.
If a lack of a result is kind of indicative of inaccessibility, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
how do I know that I'm just not ranking versus it's inaccessible? How do I know the difference?
If I went into Cloudflare and I blocked a site and it just, doesn't show up at all, versus going in and I'm looking for some query and I'm not in there. A nice thing about these services is you can go to them and just bluntly ask, hey, who is Knowatoa? What do they do? You can, and we recommend, people do this for themselves as sort of the basis for this. And if that's coming up, well, you're at least like in the mix for this. I do think there's a difference between, and this goes back to the change in content strategy. If you go in and you're like the proxy server example I gave before, that we were ranked number one in Google, we had tremendous amount of traffic, was awesome. But if you go into ChatGPT and you put that exact same question in, hey, what's a proxy server? What's it doing? It basically doesn't recommend anybody. Or even if it's a Google AI overview, it directly answers the question, yeah, there's a bunch of sources on the side. Does that really matter? And that's, a tough one. But when you get down into like, hey, what are we doing? Like, which is the best for this scenario? Those type of questions that are looking for, give me a recommendation. what we found is the best thing to do is just repetition. Like in terms of ranking factors, repetition kills everything. And if you look in the underlying, like this is how the math works for LLMs is they build consensus out of repetition. And so, our job as a marketer now changes from into a lot more. How can we restate this? How can we show like we are the best for this? We can show reviews. We can distribute that. So the content changes and then the distribution model changes. And out of that, you see results.
So this last question before we kind of jump into the rapid fire round here, but would you say that Knowatoa is more of a results-based service, or is it results and recommendations? So like, once you get the results, can you then tell me, okay, hey, if you want to rank better, you want to do this better, these are things you need to do, based on the results of you found? Or is it more focused on the front end of that, just says, we want to show you where you land, in all this, and you have to make the determination, how you can improve this. Does that make sense? Kind of the question.
For now, I think we still are doing a lot more showing than recommending. And, part of that is, and I think this speaks to the value of marketing agencies, which is a lot of that is very particular company to company. Like what works for a cybersecurity SaaS is not going to work for like a custom purse manufacturer that's B2C. And, so we have a lot of people that use us essentially almost just as a database. Like they look at our results, they export it as a CSV, they do some stuff on it, maybe they put it in Looker, and they put it together with a lot of their other efforts. I spoke before about like how much value there is, in this for marketing agencies or marketers. And I really do believe that's true because I think there's so much work that comes out of this, which is, we know we aren't ranking for this key term. So what is the content we need to create in there? Like, is it reviews? Do we have that? Is it just a guide? Is it something else? So, we can tell you the technical stuff to do, I think is maybe a good way of saying it. I think we're still a ways from being able to do really good content recommendations. So.
Yeah, and it is obviously early days, but I mean, that's a big ask. And it may be, the old adage, stay in your lane, type thing is that, you're doing what you're good at and let marketers do what they're good at, take those results and figure out a strategy to, to change their course of, where they are. So I certainly understand that for sure. Anything else that you want to add to that real quick before we transition?
I think something I'm keen to kind of get other people to think about is something a customer said to us. And I say this all the time, which is, they said, oh, ChatGPT is now our most popular and least well-trained representative of our company. And so every day people are asking it questions about our company, and maybe they get the right answer, maybe they don't, but they're still asking. And we can't stop them. And that is not a traditional SEO task. It's a very valuable task to get the right information to them, especially if you're in something like, again, cybersecurity SaaS stuff, there's a lot of regulations around it. Like if you want to do healthcare, there's HIPAA regulations. So they'll ask like, oh, is this company HIPAA certified? It had better say yes, or you're not even going to be on the table for consideration. And so there's this whole expansion of what it means to do SEO or what it means to do marketing that's almost more like an internal business product manager role. Mm-hmm. And again, very valuable. And while there is a big shift in all of these things, I think, again, it means more work and more strategy and more thought for agencies, and, generating more value. So.
I love that. That is such an interesting take, from your client there. But I mean, there's so much truth to that it really is kind of mind-boggling of the world. We're almost like we stepped into 2001: A Space Odyssey, film set. It's just a completely different world. But man, this has been great. I do want to transition right now into our kind of rapid fire, and these
Sure.
are, you're going to say these are crazy, disparate questions that make no sense, and we're thinking, hey, there's always a method to our madness here, and connection to what we're trying to provide. But I'm going to ask you these questions. very short, quick answers. First thing that comes to mind,
All right.
go for it. Did you get along with your parents growing up?
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Any pets?
Yes.
What?
Oh, currently I have a cat. Growing up, I had a dog and some cats. And currently we just moved into a new house. The cat is freaking out, trying to get all around this new house. So yeah.
Trying to figure out the new lay of the land. Children.
I have two kids. They're great. They're currently at a sleepover, and we're having a sleepover tonight, which seems like a really bad idea, but that's what we're doing. So yeah.
What time do you wake up on a typical business day?
Oh, probably about like 5:30 or 6 a.m.
And what time do you go to sleep on the business
Probably
day?
about 10:30. So yeah.
What ideal vacation spot? Money not an object. Anywhere in the world.
Oh man, at this point, I just want somewhere quiet, somewhere quiet without internet access that I could just like actually relax for a week. The geography is sort of secondary to that. So yeah.
Virginia Beach with no tourists and no internet, no Wi-Fi. How does faith affect the way you do business?
I think mostly in personal interactions, trying to have, grace with my own screw ups and, issues as well as working with others and giving them grace as well. So.
Yeah, I love that. You're king for a day. What is one thing you would change about the marketing climate? You probably mentioned it earlier in the interview.
I think there's so much negativity. I see that a lot. I see a lot of like gotcha stuff, especially on social media.
Yeah.
And I wish there was more. Oh, these people seem like they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do interesting stuff, like even if it's not the most successful thing in the world. But it is a constant frustration how much brashness and negativity seem to win on social media to me. So yeah.
There is no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, Mike, I cannot think of a better way to end our chat today than for you to remind us once again about what your customer said about ChatGPT being an employee of the company. I want to get that down exactly so we can make sure that's in the show notes.
Sure. It's ChatGPT is our most popular and least well-trained representative of the company. So
most popular and least well-trained. I love that. That is, and so true. So true. Well, Mike, thank you again for just taking time today and on a busy day before July 4th. We're about to celebrate the nation's birthday again tomorrow, but just thank you for just sharing your expertise, sharing your story, and just really helping marketing agencies, grow and scale their business through providing a good content through the podcast like this. And it's just a pleasure to meet you, and looking forward to engaging with you in the future, and just wish you all the best luck in the future. And thanks again for taking time today.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity, Kevin, to talk to you. I'm on LinkedIn. People can email me directly, mike@knowatoa.com. We do have a free sign up. You can check your site to see if, the AI bots can get to it and stuff. Give it a shot. Would love to hear feedback from people. We're working like mad on it. So, yeah.
Well, buddy, thanks again. We will make sure all those links are in the show notes, and wish you a happy 4th.
Same for you and your family, Kevin. Bye.
Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.